first question is a great one. What would be a great ritual for empaths to clear their energy when they know they've taken on someone else's energy?
You've got to recognize as an empath that someone or something just projected from the negative side of that coin something your way. And then you, as an empath, you caught it like a fastball coming direct from the pitcher right into the catcher's mitt. You caught it. And now it's inside of you. And so, whatever that negative material was that was projected your way, you've now caught, which means it's now churning inside of you. So if your sensitivity is at a more heightened stage, then you could find yourself feeling sick to your stomach. You could find your fourth energy center starting to contract. You could find your fifth energy center starting to shut down. You could find your right hip starting to back up, jam up. You could find your large intestine starting to convulse. I mean, I could go on. I've just had so many experiences with this, both personally and then also professionally with people. But that's, again, depending on the negative material that you just took on from the projector, determines what happens next. So to that, one of the first pieces is to going back to recognition and the importance and significance of recognizing things properly, clearly. So in this case, as an empath, you recognize that you potentially have taken on somebody else's stuff. So then you got to trace it back. How do you trace it back? Well, you take a look at when you woke up in the morning, how are you feeling? Feeling pretty good. Had a good sleep, had a good time with the kids, got them off to school. Everything seemed to be going well. I started my day. It was good. And then I stepped into this meeting. I stepped into this session. And then when the session was over, when the meeting was over, when the transaction was complete, on the heels of that, I started feeling sick to my stomach, or I started feeling these contractions at the center of my chest, or all of a sudden my head starts to pound. So how you track it is you go back to the beginning of the meeting. How were you feeling then? Was your head pounding then? No. Were you experiencing contractions then? No. Was my large intestine feeling like it's on fire? No. Well, then you look for the difference. Okay, so if that's where I was just an hour and a half ago, then what has happened over the last hour and a half that where I'm feeling the way I'm now feeling or sensing? And in this case, if you were projected upon and it was on the negative side of that coin and you took it on like that big catcher's mitt with your empathic ability under the influence of your intelligent ego, now you know that this belongs to somebody else. This is not even your stuff. So now at this juncture, and this is such an important piece now, this is where a lot of empaths get stuck. I've seen it 100 times over throughout the years. They think their job is to transform that other person's energy. And for the most part, that is 100% hogwash. That's the kind of stuff that can really take you down a deep, dark rabbit hole. Now, that said, there are occasions where it was right for you to take it on, but that's only if the divine said so, not you. That's where the divine steps in and intervenes. And the divine sees you as an open conduit. It also sees you as somebody that's responsible enough that will know what to do with this energy. And it's not for you to transform because it's not your energy. That'd be like some of these healers that go and lay their hands on people or wave their magic wands on people, and they say, I'm going to heal you from your stuff. Well, and maybe they did, but it very seldom lasts. And the reason why it doesn't last is because the person didn't learn anything from their own stuff. Remember, to completely transform that energy, that person's got to have an experience and or experiences with their own energy. It's only through them having visceral experiences with their own energy, do the odds get increased of them learning whatever it is that they're to be learning from their energy? Because if you don't learn from your own energy, then you're going to go back into repeat mode. You're going to repeat this whole thing all over again. And that's why I say the empath can get themselves in a lot of trouble. And one of the ways in how they get themselves in trouble, they take on somebody else's energy. And then with this thing, because they're so spiritual, which really means that's their spiritualized ego, their spiritualized ego has convinced them that, hey, I can clear all this. No, you can't, unless the divine ordained you. If they are divine ordained you to take this on, different story. Now you got the support of the divine. But if you don't have that support of the divine, you're going to have a very different experience with this energy. And you run a great risk of getting stuck in it, like a lot of empaths have. And then out of that, you could create a sickness that you didn't even have. But the sickness is being created because we've taken on something. It's now running, it's living alive inside of us, which means it's going to start to produce. It's going to start to manifest over time. So at that juncture, you just literally recognize, again, going back to recognition, what this is. This is an energy that I took on from somebody else. And you might even have an awareness on who you took it on from to recognize the difference between what is their stuff that we've potentially taken on versus what really is our stuff. And then to recognize where you're at with your own discernment muscle, your own inner muscle of discernment. How good are you at discerning between this belongs to somebody else, this is from somebody else, versus this is mine? And that also is a process. I don't know of anybody who has gone ahead and mastered this overnight, not as an empath, no one. But it can be mastered. It can be mastered over time with a fair amount of work, obviously a little bit of discipline, because you got to constantly check yourself when you find yourself having those kinds of experiences. But again, none of it begins to open or morph or transform until you get better at being able to recognize whatever it is that's going on within us, whatever it is that's going on around us. That is a very powerful point as we get better and better in terms of how quickly can we recognize it. Because once we recognize it and we get better at recognizing it, that's where we can really make a new choice, a wiser choice, more authentically empowered choice. And once we get to that place, that's what alters our path. That's what will alter our path, whether it's the path for the day, the path for the week, the path for the month, the path for the rest of our lives. It'll alter our path every single time once we get to that point where we literally notice we're making a different choice, a healthier choice in those moments in which we find ourselves in.